Welcome to Champion Minded, the podcast for those who aim for excellence, not only in the sports arena, but in life. My name is Allistair, author, speaker, mindset and performance coach, and my goal is to help you unleash your unlimited potential and provide you with the tools to achieve greatness. Are you ready to become champion minded? Then let's do this. Hey everybody, welcome to the Champion Minded podcast. I'm Allistair. Thank you for joining me this week. If it's your first time, then welcome. Great to have you along. Today's episode, we are in the series What It Takes. And for some of you who've been following the podcast for some time, you'll know that What It Takes is the series where we get in the minds, the mindsets, the programs, the daily lives of successful performers. And today I am super excited to have probably one of the coolest people out there, not just in squash, but in sport, Amanda Sobhy. Amanda Sobhy is a super fun girl. You'll get to hear that on this episode. Someone that squeezes the juice out of life. Super energetic, great attitude. I love the way she sees the world as well, and I think her time out of the sport with her injury will reveal that, which you'll hear in today's episode. Amanda has been as high as number 6 in the world in squash, but you'll hear what her ambitions are, and you'll really also discover that she really has a champion-minded mentality. That's something that really came across in this interview. She had a bad injury last year, which she ruptured her Achilles, which kept her out of the sport for some time. So in today's show, we get into that, and she gives us some advice on how to spend that time away from the sport, which, as we know, is not the easiest thing to do when you're an athlete. And also, I spoke to her just after she had won her 4th U.S. national title in squash. So great to have Amanda back. Great to have her healthy. And I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy this one. So let's get into it. Amanda, welcome to What It Takes on the Champion Minded podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And before we get into it, congratulations on U.S. title number 4, right?
Yes. I was really happy about that. To be national champion and number 1 in your country, in your sport, is kind of a big deal. So I was just really pleased about that.
Now, Amanda, I obviously have been following your career, especially over the last 6-7 years. For me, the question was, do you never stop smiling?
Actually, a lot of people on tour and a lot of just spectators, they just call me the Smiler, which is really funny. I do go into serious mode when I play matches. But, off court, I'm just naturally a happy person, and I like to smile a lot and laugh and crack jokes. So, yeah, I don't mind being called the Smiler.
Well, I think your opponents would probably call you the Assassin Smiler, because on the tennis tour we had a player called Martina Hingis. I'm sure you might remember her from a years back, and Martina was always smiling, but she would just take down her opponents like brutally. And I think I think there might be something of that in you as well, Amanda. So it's that champion mentality. But
yeah, exactly.
So Amanda, if you wouldn't mind giving us a brief background of where you grew up and when you first started playing squash.
So I grew up in Long Island, New York, in a tiny little town called Seacliff, and my dad was the squash pro at the club called the Cree Club, and so he kind of was the first person to get me into squash. I didn't start until I was about 11. I have an older brother, Omar, who's 2 years older than me, and he was kind of the first squash player in the family, and so he was my dad's main focus in the beginning, and I started playing tennis originally when I was 6 years old. So I was busy playing tennis, and my dad was focusing on my older brother. And my dad, he was a big squash player. He's from Egypt, grew up there, played squash all in Egypt, played on the juniors, was nationally ranked, played a little bit on the pro tour in the 80s, and then came over to the U.S. to play a bit more squash and would play in tournaments in New York City that my mom was the organizer of. So that's how they met. It's a little squash love story. And so, so when I was younger, I was always dragged to tournaments with my brother. And so he'd be playing and I'd just get on a court and hit by myself. And people said, "Oh yeah, you're pretty good, for not ever playing squash really." So one day my dad just decided to enter me in a very low level silver junior tournament, and I did quite well in it, really loved it. And so at the age of 11, I started playing both. I was playing tennis and squash. And then at 12, my dad said, "Okay, you got to choose one and become really good at it." And so I chose squash.
So
never looked back since.
So let's come in there and say, why squash over tennis?
I liked how fast-paced squash was. I also had a terrible serve in tennis, and so I was so self-conscious and refused to ever play a tournament in tennis.
Okay.
Because of it. Whereas squash, I was physically really strong. I really liked it. It was fast-paced, high intensity, and I enjoyed it a lot more, and I enjoyed playing tournaments there. Also, tennis, I was only getting weekly lessons, whereas squash, I could just go whenever to the club that my dad coached at, and he would just get on court with me. So it was pretty convenient. But I mean, in general, I just really like the sport a lot more.
You know, something very fascinating you spoke about that, and it's a commonality that I've picked up in a lot of great athletes, is that there would be an older brother or sister, most of the time an older brother to a younger sister, and it was usually the younger sister that would obviously get further in their career. You know, I can give you so many examples in the tennis world. I can give you so many examples in the track and field world where there's been an older brother, and they've been almost used as, in a way, the experiment, so to say, and then what's worked and what hasn't worked on them has worked on the younger sibling. Would you say that would have been a pattern in your family?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we called my brother the guinea pig.
There you go.
Because he was the test dummy, and then whatever worked or didn't work for him, we were able to use it on me and my younger sister Sabrina, who's 3 years younger. And so he's a very, very fit person and very physical. But I mean, not the greatest of squash players in terms of playing on the pro tour. But, you know, he was really good growing up and training with, just because of that physicality, because he's a large boy, really strong. So,
right.
I mean, it helped me out a lot.
Would you say he was a fundamental part of your development and your progress in the younger years, competing, practicing against your brother? And
oh, absolutely. I mean, my brother is over 6 foot and he's really strong. So the fact that I grew up kind of playing someone who puts pace and is much stronger than me, and then that's kind of my strength, and squash is my strength and power, and how I'm able to kind of move across the tee and attack and play at a fast pace, and he kind of takes my game and cranks it up a few notches. So that helps a ton. And whenever I'm playing matches against the girls that are sometimes a bit more physical, I'm not worried whatsoever, just because I'm used to playing against my brother, and my brother never wants to lose to his younger sister. So I'm used to him pushing and shoving me around.
Okay. So in 2010, you won the World Junior Championship. So obviously you were already at a really high level as a junior as well. You went on to win an astonishing 62-0 in your 4 years at Harvard. That's unreal. You didn't lose one match in 4 years?
No, I did not. And I lost only 2 games my entire career. So I won all my matches, 3-love, except for 2 of them. I won them 3-1.
Okay, so let me just jump in there and say, during those 4 years and playing those matches, were you ever ill, injured? Uh, you know where I'm going here right now, where you had to really
Yeah.
dig deep or get grit, or because to go
I do
62.
remember.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I remember one match specifically. I was playing a tournament, a professional tournament, in Cleveland that like few days before the weekend, and then Sunday we were playing against Cornell. And my coach said, you have to come back because we're just not so sure about Cornell if we can win without you. And I managed to make it farther than expected in Cleveland. So my match finished Saturday night. So I flew at like 5:30 in the morning on Sunday morning back to Boston and arrived, barely have slept, got to the courts in the morning, kind of took a nap, was just really just mentally so exhausted. And then I had to play the Cornell number 1, who's a decent player. I mean, it's no walk in the park.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of the coaches just left me to do my own thing, because normally everyone expects me to win 3-love. It's a given. And that day, no one was there in my corner, kind of, and I was struggling a ton movement-wise, seeing the ball. I was so tired, and just my coaches were not there at all. I was kind of on my own, and again, I was down, I think, maybe 10-7 in one of the games. I won 3-love. Each of the games were really, really close, but the first game, I think I was down 10-7, and I just felt, no one was there for me, so I had to do it myself, and I was like, I'm not going to lose a game against her, because I think up until that point I hadn't lost a game yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told myself there's no chance that this is going to be the day that I lose a game. So that was one moment where I really had to dig in deep for myself, just because it was, at the end of the day, me alone pretty much. In between games, none of the coaches were there. I had to figure it out. I had to just really push through.
If I can jump in there, I mean, I've been in the squash world, or worked more in the squash world a few years back. I worked with, excuse me, some fine players like Nicole David and Natalie Grinham and Rami, etc., who are all well known on the tour. But I always have discussions about them, that I would believe that in juniors there should be a balance, where there's some tournaments where you can't be coached, and there's tournaments where you can be coached, so you can learn how to figure it out. I mean, because at the end of the day, you've got to figure it out when you're on the court. Sure, you get whatever it is, a minute and a half or 2 minutes when you're off the court to have some coaching. But for me, the great athletes have always been able to kind of figure it out themselves, because they're out there by themselves.
Yeah, I actually feel like you're reading my mind, because I've said that to so many people, and that's kind of my main philosophy, especially when I'm on tour, because everyone tells me, oh, well, I mean, so many people that are not on tour that just see me on occasion and see me in tournaments, and they're like, why don't you have any coaches with you? And I was like, well, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm the one on court who has to win against my opponent. So, and I don't want to be relying on my coaches to win. We put the work in off court and in between tournaments, and once it gets to the tournament, I have to be the one who is able to do it myself. And I firmly believe that. And I think that players that have to look outside at their coaches or whoever is outside of the court kind of gives me that mental edge over them, because I know that they can't do it themselves.
Yeah, I totally agree there, because I find, especially in junior sport, kids can be overcoached, where they're no longer they're not taught how to think. They're taught what to think, and
absolutely.
And here they come unstuck when they get into competition, where maybe coach isn't there that day, or they're somewhere else on the other side of the world where the coach couldn't travel, and now they're trying to figure it out, and they can't. And coming from a coaching background, I know that, overcoaching is an issue. Coaches as well who want to be that person who's there, telling them what to do. It's almost like an ego type of thing of like, my player and so on and so forth. But for me, a great athlete is someone who can really, really, really figure it out themselves. So no, good stuff. Amanda, one of the areas I really wanted to jump into on this podcast, which interests me because obviously I've followed you the past few years and especially the last 2 years. In 2016, you had an injury, and then obviously 2017 you had your Achilles rupture. Just correct me if I'm wrong there, which put you out for 10 months.
Yeah.
This is a big thing in sports, especially playing high level. Things are going to happen: injuries, illness, setbacks, all these things that can be frustrating and disappointing for a player, an athlete. Tell me how you dealt with that time away from the sport and what advice you'd give someone that's injured or out of their sport.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was not planning on rupturing my Achilles, and when it happened, I was in a bit of a shock, to say the least. And I just thought to myself, how did this happen to me? Normally, people who rupture their Achilles in squash are like middle-aged club member, out-of-shape men. And I was like, I don't fit this description. How did this happen to me? I thought I'm like pretty fit. I was at the highest ranking ever in my career, and I was feeling really great. And all of a sudden, it just kind of, it just stopped. So that kind of gave me a bit of a perspective that, okay, I'm out for this huge amount of time. I pretty much can just start from scratch and start from the ground up and rebuild myself, not try and get back to doing the exact same stuff that I was doing before my injury, because obviously something did not work. And so maybe now I have to pay more attention. And when I did get back into it, took me about, I'd say maybe 6 months, 7 months until I could properly start training for squash instead of just like rehabbing to become a normal human being again. So when I was let's say first 7 months, I used that time to kind of enjoy. Like I figured, okay, if I'm going to be out for 4 months, just not even being weight bearing or able to walk without a boot on or something, I figured, okay, I'm going to enjoy this time, be a real human being. Never once in my life have I had this much time off in my entire life. So I figured, okay, might as well enjoy it. There's no real use of moping around and kind of being all depressed and dwelling on the fact that I was injured. That wasn't really going to help any situation. So I just made the best of it. And I actually had a really great time when I was out injured. I went to a concert. I saw a ton of my friends, went out to dinner, traveled a bit, even went on vacation still. So it was actually a lot of fun. And then I'd say the hardest part for me was when I kind of got that all out of my system and was wanting to get back into training, and I still couldn't. And so I'd wake up and I'd go to PT, but I'd wake up and I'd just really have like no purpose in the day. And I'd be like, what do I do? I just have no idea. What do I do with my day? Normally I would go train, and now I'm like, all right, well, I have an entire day. How much rehab can I do? So that was a bit of a tough period for me. It was probably around months 5 and 6, and I still wasn't quite. And there, also in my rehab period that time, the progress slowed a little bit. It wasn't as easy to see the little gains, which that kind of helped me stay positive in the beginning, was just focusing on the little gains, being able to walk, being able to flex my foot, being able to increase in the resistance bands that I was using in physical therapy, being able to step up onto a box, being able to bike, all those little things that I was focusing on instead of just trying to look at like, oh my God, it's going to be another like 8 months before I get back to playing. So focusing on the kind of the process and the little process goals, those helped keep me positive a lot. And I was really happy because, I mean, once you kind of have that, get injured and have not being able to walk or play, you kind of find a new appreciation for your body and the things that it can do for you. So I was really happy to see myself slowly coming back. And then it got to a point where I was strong enough to start getting back in squash, but not strong enough to be properly doing it. So pushing off was still really tough. I was able to get on court and hit balls, but it was kind of like dragging my leg. I wasn't doing myself any justice because I wasn't doing it properly. And my PT was kind of released me early and said, okay, now just do your exercises with your fitness coach. And my fitness coach is saying, oh, what do you do with your, what's your PT saying? And I'm in the middle of this. And it was a really rough time for me. And I just felt really, really helpless and lost. And it wasn't until the U.S. Open in October when I was probably at my lowest point because I was expecting to be back, at least moving a little bit on court and feeling a bit stronger. And I just felt like my progress plateaued a bit. And fortunately, like I surround myself with a great team of people who helped me out through that period a ton. But I ended up having to move down from my base in Boston to Philadelphia for 5 weeks to work with this very squash-specific rehab facility and work with someone who's worked with squash players before and professional athletes and kind of knows how to rehab a professional athlete. And I had to make the move down to Philadelphia, and I worked there 5 days a week for 5 weeks and completely put my trust in him, completely put my trust in new people, and that helped me out a ton. I think that he pretty much brought me back to life.
So important coming in there, so important that you surround yourself with a good team, especially in times like that as well. Important to keep yourself busy, I think was one of the things you said as well, because a lot of players, all they know, especially at a very elite level, like you're at an elite level, you're obviously your highest ranking's been number 6 in the world in squash, which is, I mean, just absolute world class. But they only know that one thing, and then when there's a vacuum or where they're injured, they don't know what to do with themselves. So what you're saying there, it's so important to keep yourself busy. Keep your mind stimulated, because sitting around thinking about it can drive you nuts, right? It can drive you crazy.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you're just have all this time to kill and you're just sitting there day after day and you're just like, okay, oh my God, like I'm miserable. But I also learned when I was out injured is how quickly that well of money can dry up. And so that made me reassess things and think, okay, I need to figure out other ways to generate income and not have it just rely all on pro tournaments or sponsors. I need to be able to generate income myself as well. And so that kind of made me think of more a business standpoint instead of just a athlete standpoint. And so it was kind of interesting. I was able to work on a couple projects while I was injured and keep, as you said, keep me mentally stimulated instead of just only putting myself in as a professional athlete category. I can be so much more than just that. And being injured kind of helps you reassess everything and make you think from a different standpoint and perspective.
It is. I mean, so many athletes I've spoken to that have had that mindset that you had there of seeing things from another perspective and learning a little bit about other things outside life. It just gives you so much more appreciation. I mean, there's having a passion for the sport. You know, you obviously love the sport, but just when you're out of it, it just really proves to you how much you really miss it, how much you love it, and how hungry you are for success. And that proves with you coming back and claiming your fourth U.S. title, and you're back up into the top 20 already on the
Yes,
Whisper
I
rankings.
am. So yeah, so I made my comeback back in January at the Tournament of Champions, which was pretty
This year,
much around the
2018.
yes,
Okay.
2018. So that was around the that was the 10-month mark. And originally I wanted to come back for the World Championships in December, which would have been the 9-month mark. And I had that set because, you know, people were telling me, oh yeah, you can come back in 9 months. And so I wanted to be one of those. And the fact that like I wasn't progressing, as I wasn't really on track for that 9-month mark, made me doubt myself and say, oh my God, am I not excelling the way that other people who have come back from an Achilles injury is excelling? Why am I recovering a bit slower than other people? And so I had to get all of that. I had to really like reassess with my team and get that all out of my head and just focus on myself and the fact that I can take however long I want, but when I come back, I'm coming back and doing it properly. So I started
think
working
that's
with a nutritionist. Yeah.
I think that's such great advice. There is that you might have an injury to the same areas as someone else, but the recovery process can be so different because we all heal at a different rate. We all have different bodies. We all have different. It's we put expectations to ourselves, saying, "All right, we want to be back at this date, or we want to play this tournament," and then we get disappointed when we can't. So how often do we see players rush their recovery, rush their rehab, only to come back and get injured again? And it happens all too often. But you can, in a way, understand it because you want to get back out there. In a way, you each day you almost see like you're losing progress or you're losing ground on your competitors. But I mean, healthy recovery is number one, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I had to pretty much sit down with my team and reassess the fact that, listen, I'm not going to be ready for the World Champs in December as much as I would love to have played it. And so, I've been out for 9 months. Who cares if I'm going to be out for another month?
Mm.
And from that point on, once I was able to accept that, it felt like a massive weight was lifted off my shoulders. Like I was having major anxiety about that and panic attacks and just all of that stress being like, oh, I have to come back. I said I would be back for the World Champs in December, but my body's just not in that state where I am. And so once I was able to accept that and kind of have that weight lifted off my shoulders, I was much happier. I was just felt much more free to kind of recover at my own rate and take my time to do things properly instead of trying to rush it and come back early and just not be as strong or as healthy as I would like and potentially risk injury to any other parts of my body or re-injuring myself. And so, it wasn't worth it. And I figured, okay, I'm going to just take my time, have another month to recover and, come back for the Tournament of Champions in New York, which is my home crowd. And, that's what I did. And it was a great decision.
There you go. I'm sure there was a lot of things you missed being out, but what is the one thing that really sticks out for you that you missed while being away from the tour?
I missed winning. Hate to say it, I really like to win.
Spoken like a champion.
Yeah, playing those tournaments and beating top players and winning tournaments. I miss that. I love the competition.
Spoken like a champion. Let me ask you this: do you hate to lose more than you love to win?
No, I love to win more than I hate to lose.
Okay, interesting. It's a question I always love to ask. So, switching it up, let's talk about mindset, because obviously, champion minded is about the mindset, about motivation, preparation, etc. Um, how important is it in the game of squash, and how do you work on yours?
The mindset, I mean, mindset's huge, and it's probably the most like underutilized tool in a lot of sports, especially squash. When you get to that top level, everybody's fit, everybody's fast, everybody has good shots. And so what kind of separates you from another person is that mental edge at when it gets down to those tough matches and it's 8-all in the fifth, 9-all in the fifth, and it really comes down to 1 or 2 points and you're having long, brutal rallies. It's not, and everyone's tired. It just comes down to who wants it more. And I think that kind of mental edge separates the top one from the top two, or the top five from the top 10. So it's a huge difference, and I've spent a lot of time with it. I've been spending more and more since the past couple of years, and especially during my time off with injury, I've been spending a lot of time with my mental coach, and it helps a lot, and I feel like I've improved in that area, but there's still so much more I can improve in.
If you could give one tip to an up and coming player, a junior player, on how to handle pressure, and we just spoke about those moments like 8-all in the fifth or 9-all in the fifth. What would it be if there was one tip you could give a junior player on how to handle pressure?
Embrace it and have full confidence in yourself and your ability.
I like that. And would you say, I mean, where do they learn that? I mean, would you say that that's something that you embrace in your practice as well? Do you try and put yourself into those situations? Can
I
you?
do. Yeah. I don't think you can ever get to the exact situation that you can feel in a match, but you can simulate it as much as possible with really tough ghosting sessions, pressure sessions where basically you're retrieving for a certain amount of time or a certain amount of shots and hitting to one corner. And so you have to, or playing practice matches that put you under that type of pressure. But, I think it comes with experience as well. The more you play those types of matches, the more comfortable you're going to feel and the more confident you'll feel in those situations.
If I could ask you, what player stands out for you, past or present, that handled pressure the best? Male or female?
Currently, huh?
Male or female? Past or present?
Currently, I think Mohamed Sherbagi's doing a really great job this season. He's won, I think, the last 7 tournaments, or he's made the finals of the last 7 tournaments, which is really tough to do, and reclaimed his world #1 ranking. So he's got like a massive target on his back and all these expectations, but also just to mentally back up tournament after tournament and consistently make the finals and play those tough matches over and over again and still be able to get yourself pepped up for it, because it's so easy to play a tough match and then the next week you're playing that same person again, and even though you won last time, you're thinking, oh my God, do I have to do this again? And the fact that he showed that he's doing that is truly remarkable. I have a lot of respect for him.
No, I mean, that's interesting. I'm going to dive back into that a little bit. We won't spend too much time on it, but I mean, obviously, you had a target on your back being 62-0 during college. How did you deal with having a target on your back every single week?
I actually really liked it. I mean, I knew in college squash, like, I knew everyone was going to be gunning for me. When they played me, they had no expectations. Everyone expects me to win 3-love. And so I knew that I had to perform. And well, I would go in there, get the job done, and get out. And that was my mentality. I'd rather put the work in, work really hard, and finish in 3 games instead of kind of playing less to the level that I'm able to do and kind of moseying around and not really giving it my full attention and everything, and have it be a bit sloppy and have it go to 4 games and not really be that pleased about it. So that my mentality is always go in there, get the job done, work hard, get out.
Again, spoken like a champion, but just again, that's how you embrace pressure, like you said. As I asked you just before there, what advice would you give a young kid? And you said embrace it, and I think that's how you took that on during that time as well. So, awesome. What drives you?
What drives me? Well, I mean, I love to win. That's a huge motivating factor. Also, I really like the fact that no U.S. has never produced a top squash player before, or a U.S. born squash player. And
when you're talking top, what are you talking a number? What would you mean by that?
Well, a top 10. They've never produced a top 10 player, but I'm talking about world number 1, world champion, British Open champion, someone who's winning the majors, all of that. And I want to be the first person to do that. I want people to look back and say squash is big in the U.S. because of Amanda Sobhy and what she did for it.
Okay, I like that. Carrying the flag. Yep. Let's talk about coaching. You're coached at the moment by Terry Linkau, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, Terry Linkau.
Yep. Who obviously was an incredible player himself and world number 1 and one heck of a tough competitor. Tell me, Amanda, what do you specifically look for in a coach?
When I look for a coach, someone who I'm able to see, how is it, personable, someone who I get along with, who understands me, but someone who is not, I wouldn't say who has too much of an ego in the fact that it's his way or the highway, or his or her way or the highway. And he's very open in terms of, okay, this is what I want to teach you, and you can use it to add to your tools for your toolbox and add to your game. It's all just kind of adding to the game that's already existed instead of trying to change things.
So you would say a coach that really adapts well, less ego. I mean, here's the thing as well, is that especially when you're touring, you're pretty much spending 80% of the time with your coach away from the court. So, building up a relationship and building up a connection is so important, isn't it?
Absolutely. Just having a coach that's equally invested in you is huge. I mean, there are so many coaches that I see nowadays that are just in it for getting the paycheck and the money and just putting in the hour, and then that's it. And the thing I love about Thierry is that he's not like that at all. He cares about his players. He's fully invested. He wants to see them succeed and really devotes his time and effort into it and cares so much, which is why I love working with him.
And how long have you been working with Terry for?
I started working with him when I was a junior at Harvard.
Oh, wow. So you've been
5 years now.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that. So, I mean, there you go again. A coach that's been with you through the good and the bad, because that's something we see, especially also in the tennis world, is that the player is out injured, and 2-3 months the coach is out of there looking for another player. So, that's another thing as well, Amanda. that relationship, that bond, that trust is built up during the tough times, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and not just the good times. So um, there's something I talk about called prepper readiness in Champion Minded, and it's basically being prepared and ready before you go out and compete. I like to call it the 1 hour before you compete. Um, Especially for junior players, sometimes you see they'll warm up more intensely for a tougher opponent or somebody that's seeded or ranked higher. Sometimes they won't warm up at all if it's someone that they feel they can beat easily. You know where I'm going here right now. There's like no structure. There's no
Oh yeah.
routine.
hmm
What does the hour look like for Amanda Sobhy before going out to compete?
So on match days, I'm a bit OCD, and I like routine, and I just don't like to stray from what works for me. So the hour before, I show up to the courts the hour before, and I like to just put my music on and sit down and relax. I don't really socialize too much, kind of do my own thing. And then I'd say half an hour to 25 minutes before I'm supposed to go on, I start warming up. And that includes foam rolling, stretching, dynamic warm-ups, a little bit of movement stuff, quick feet, some lunging, and a little bit of plyos just to get the legs going. And so I do that. I also have some notes on my opponent that I read beforehand before I play matches. I also have little tips for myself, just to kind of get me in that mindset that I read beforehand. And then I also make sure that I'm staying hydrated, drinking water, making sure that I have my snacks in case I mentally start bonking out in the middle of the match and I need some sort of gel or goo or something, or electrolytes in my water. So that my mental coach has told me be impeccable about the controllables. So I figured
Good
the things I
advice.
can control, I'm going to be really good at it. So that way I can just focus on my match.
Yeah, Roger Federer said that it all comes down to the details, and especially
Oh yeah.
at the elite level. So, it's so incredibly important. Here's something that a lot of people don't know, and um, you might know I've spent a lot of time on the tennis tour, and I'm in the locker rooms, I'm in the gyms, and I'm in the background or backstage, if you want to call it. And Roger actually, believe it or not, prepares his own drinks. Now, a lot of people would think that everybody, that a guy like Roger Federer has everybody running around him, getting his towel, getting
Mhm.
his, which is actually not the case. Roger, also that hour before, I already know his routine, what time he's in the gym, what exercises he does. I mean, I've obviously observed a lot of what the GOAT, the greatest of all time, does, but
Mhm.
he meticulously prepares his electrolyte drinks, and that just shows you the detail of a guy that's won 19 majors and how important it is for him to take care of those details. And I think that's a great lesson for juniors out there as well.
Oh
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
talking about tennis, and I know you were swinging back and forth here. You met somebody last week in New York.
I
Tell us about it.
did. I did. So I went to the tiebreak tens in Madison Square Garden. My friend actually won their social media giveaway, which included 2 courtside tickets
No
and
ways.
a meet and greet with Venus and Serena Williams. So,
How
and
cool is that?
they were it was unbelievable, and they were my idols growing up because I grew up as a little tennis player. And so the fact that I was able to finally meet them in person was truly amazing, and I was so starstruck. And also in 2015, a reporter for the Boston Globe wrote an article on me and my sister Sabrina, calling us the Venus and Serena of squash.
Okay.
So the little fangirl that I am, I printed out that article and I brought it to them, and I asked them to sign it. And I told them, I was like, Oh, I just wanted to say that my sister and I are referred to as the Williams sisters of squash, and they wrote an article about us on it. And if you could sign it, and they thought it was pretty cool, and they were really fascinated about the article, and they signed it. And now it's posted on my bedroom wall.
Awesome stuff, man. That must have been so cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so just a few more questions before we get to our rapid fire questions, which is always fun. Um, advice for junior players, junior athletes out there. It doesn't necessarily have to be in squash, but if you were to give, I hate this question actually. If you were to give your 13-year-old self advice, what would it be?
Um, I mean, I don't know about myself, but for young athletes, I would say just go out there, play as many sports as possible growing up. That nothing kills me more than seeing juniors, and you see this a lot in the junior squash, that parents will just have their kids at like 7, 8 years old focusing only on squash, getting private lessons, private coaching. And I'm like, when I was that young, I played about 6 different sports, and I had no private coach. I was just stuck in a team, and I was having fun, and I was enjoying it, and I was going from soccer practice to tennis lessons to volleyball, and then maybe going and hitting a squash ball every so often. And so I think that's kind of lost a bit nowadays in the younger generation, and it's really sad to see.
I love that you brought that up, because there are quite a few parents that listen to this podcast as well, and with the one main reason of, let's hear what the best have done and what it takes to get there. And obviously this series is called What It Takes. But Amanda, any bits of advice you could give the parents out there of kids growing up and playing sports?
I'd say just throw your kids into as many different sports as possible to pick up just so many different kind of elements and techniques, and just have them enjoy it, and instead of just trying to shove one sport down their kids' throat in the hopes of having them get to college, and they might get to a good college, but you're going to get them to hate the sport and burn out. And I've seen it before. I mean, it's happened to people close to me, and it's really sad to see. And the fact that so many parents are doing that now, I just feel bad for the kids. And I just tell, and whenever parents ask me, oh, did you have private coaches growing up? And I was like, I didn't start squash till 11. I played about 5 different sports beforehand. And they get so surprised when they hear that. And they're like, what? You didn't have private coaching? Your squash wasn't your only sport? And I was like, squash was my last sport that I started.
Yeah. It's alarming that, 70% of kids drop out of sports before the age of 14, and that's one of the main reasons. The parents, at the end of the day, it sometimes becomes the parents' dream, the parents' goal, and
Yeah.
I see it, especially here in the United States, Amanda, in soccer, and especially girls soccer, where I know this sounds funny, but like the father might be a soccer fan, and he wants his daughter to play soccer, and you can see the little girl doesn't want to be at practice. She wants to be rather dancing or in gymnastics with some of her other friends. And this is nothing against soccer, but just it could be any sport. But it's the parent's dream for his kid to become a soccer player or a tennis player or whatever it may be. And I see it a lot. I see it a lot in junior sports, and you can just see that kid doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Absolutely.
Awesome. Amanda, let's get on to rapid fire questions. It's not more
Cool.
than one word or a sentence. Are you ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm going to throw some surprise ones at you here as well. So, let's see how you handle one. Toughest opponent?
Toughest opponent, Raneem El Walili.
Okay. Favorite hobby?
Favorite hobby, singing.
And you've sung the national anthem at TD Gardens for the Boston Bruins, right?
I did, yes.
Multi-talented. I mean, how do you get to choose what you're going to do? I mean, anyway. Um, Favorite sport to watch besides squash?
Um, hmm. Ah, basketball.
Okay. Boston fan?
I am. I'm a
Okay,
big Boston sports fan.
okay, Celtics. Um, Favorite band or musician?
Favorite band, Linkin Park.
Okay, I like them too, especially the Jay-Z one. Um,
Yep.
Last book read?
I just finished a book called Beartown.
Okay. Um, Favorite movie?
The Replacements.
Okay, haven't heard of that one. Who stars in there?
It's really not like a very special movie, but I love it. It's with Keanu Reeves. It's a football movie.
Okay. Um, Best moment in your career to date?
Ooh. Um, Getting to the finals of the Tournament of Champions in 2016.
Okay. And you know what's coming next, right? Worst moment in career.
No, worse. Probably rupturing my Achilles on match ball on top of a mountain in Colombia.
I think I'd have to agree with you there. Um, Favorite food?
Favorite food, bacon cheeseburger.
Favorite sports team?
New England Patriots. Coming from New York, I'm going to get a lot of
Yeah.
slack from people for this, but
Oh
I love
boy,
the Patriots.
we're gonna have to edit. I think we're gonna have to edit that part
I
out there.
know, I know.
You've either won a whole load of fans or lost a whole load of fans. So that it can go
Yeah,
either way there. But
there's no in between.
no, there isn't. Not with that one. It's black and white there. Favorite country or place ever visited?
Actually, it's Cape Town.
Oh wow, South Africa. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, beautiful there, isn't it?
I
Uh,
loved it.
Tea, coffee, or protein shake?
That's a funny one. T.
Okay. Favorite athlete, male or female, past or present?
Federer.
Okay. Something others don't know about you.
I played the French horn from 4th grade until 12th grade, and I can still play it. I can pick it up, read a sheet of music, and play it. So I was a bit of a band geek.
You see, there we go, all those talents again. Now it's the French horn. I mean, I'm going to have to start writing all this down at the moment. So, okay. Person who inspired or inspires you the most?
Ooh, this one's a tough one. My family, I'd say. My parents.
Okay. Are you a rule follower or a risk taker?
Risk taker.
One word that best describes you?
Hardworking.
That's 2 words, but we'll put a hyphen in between the hard and working, okay?
There's a hyphen.
All right, almost there. Last two. Biggest pet peeve?
When people cannot properly use the grammar of your and you are and there and they are. It drives me nuts.
Oh, okay.
That and when you spell my last name wrong.
Oh boy, I've got to go back and check all my Twitter feed and Facebook account now.
Not you.
Last one. Favorite cheat food?
Any type of baked good.
All right, I like it.
Cookies, brownies.
Okay, but that's totally off season, right?
That is.
Or after a win.
Yeah, after a tournament.
Okay, there you go. Amanda, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know a little bit more about you. I know the listeners are really going to enjoy this one. I've really enjoyed speaking to you, and my new nickname for you is Smiley. So that's going to be that. But for the listeners out there to follow you and stay in touch with you, what's the best way? On social media?
You can follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I have it all.
Okay, and your Twitter account is?
Twitter is It's Sobhy Time.
Okay.
Instagram is asobhy93, and Facebook is Amanda Sobhy Squash.
Cool. And obviously you've got your website, amandasobhy.com.
.com. Yep.
Which is a really cool website, by the way. So
thank you. I haven't really formally published it out there, but I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, I like it, and it's up to date as well, which is great as well. So, anyway, final question, Amanda. I could go on for another hour here, but I know you've got to get some sleep because you're a professional athlete. But, Amanda, in your opinion, what does it take to be champion-minded?
It takes, I'd say, self-belief and hard work.
I like that, short and simple. Amanda, best of luck for the rest of the year, and really look forward to following you and seeing your progress.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for joining me. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with anyone who you might know would benefit from it, or who aims to create excellence in their life. Also, please head on over to iTunes, subscribe, and please leave a review. I would greatly appreciate that. And don't forget that this podcast is also available on YouTube. If you'd like to stay connected, I'm on social media at Twitter at Allistair McCall, Instagram, Be Champion Minded, Facebook, McCall Method, and if you'd like to leave a comment, share some feedback, then please email me at mccallmethod@aol.com. Also, big thanks to all of you who share my posts on social media under the hashtag ChampionMinded. I greatly appreciate it. So, until next week, remember you were made for greatness. Now go out and do the work. Until next time, stay champion-minded, my friends.